Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Teed Up. Cheers, and especially cheers if your name is Cole Anthony, Terence Ross, or Franz Wagner, which we're coming to. So, I was going to do this video last night, and life got in the way, I guess you could say. So instead, here we are, and instead of before the Magic at Knicks, when the Magic were 0-2, we are now post Magic and Knicks, and the Magic are now 1-2 after pulling off what could be maybe considered even a bit of an upset after the spanking that was handed out by the Knicks in Orlando. Orlando rolls into the most famous arena in the world, Madison Square Garden, MSG, and comes out winners at 110-104. Player of the game for me would be Cole Anthony, who hauled in a massive 16 rebounds. Now think about that for a 6 feet point guard. 16 rebounds to go along with 29 points, 8 assists, and also hitting 5 3-pointers. First of all, Cole Anthony carried the Magic offensively in the first half. And with that final stat line in front of his mum and little brother in Spike Lee's seats, and happy birthday to Cole's mum, by the way, he joins very elite company of Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Manu Ginobili, and Russell Westbrook as the only guards in NBA history to record a stat line at the end of a game of 25 points, at least 25 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 3-pointers. That's a really elite company for Cole, and I'm delighted about that. If you know me, you'll know that I'm a big Cole Anthony aficionado, I guess you could say. I've got a lot of time for Cole. I love watching Cole play on the court. I think Cole himself, given his comments where his little brother apparently told him to stop missing shots, would probably say it hasn't been the best pre-season or start that he's hoped for. But to come out of this with a stat line like that, with a performance like that, which was, he just seemed to be everywhere, particularly in the first half in Madison Square Garden in front of his family, and getting that first win of the season for the Magic was absolutely huge. So you can see behind me, the Cole Anthony jersey is on proud display. I love that jersey. It's one of my favourite ones, and it's in honour of the man himself. Another little interesting history stat for those of you who like history, like me. The Magic became officially the youngest starting lineup in the history of the NBA from the statistics we know. So the starting lineup for the Magic last night of Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Mo Bamba, and Wendell Carter Jr. is the youngest starting lineup in history, who went into Madison Square Garden and beat a very physical New York Knicks team after being blown out in the first 2 games of the season. So it said a lot for the character of these young guys in what seemed to be a sold-out MSG, which was, I think, expecting more of the same. Also, it must be said, Terence Ross in the fourth quarter, love T. Ross, I think every Orlando Magic fan probably does. Terence Ross sealed the deal for the Magic, and at halftime in a group chat with other Orlando Magic fans, I'd have my fears that Terence Ross was going to pull out the Audi stat line, which if you look at an Audi logo, it's predominantly zeros. Well, it's all zeros, but I was worried about that. But T. Ross comes up big in the fourth quarter, 22 points, and he carried the young Magic team to a 110-104 victory. So massive shout out to Terence Ross. Now, the video, which I was planning to do before last night's game, was almost a good and bad review of the start of the season for the Orlando Magic. And I've broken that down into 3 key points for each. I don't want to go any more than that because I feel it would be a bit arduous, shall we say. So if we start off with the negative, I think the first 2 games as a Magic fan, you had to be worried. I was worried. Getting blown out twice. So the first game of the season was in San Antonio, and we lost that by 123 to San Antonio, 97 to Orlando. I don't think the Spurs are going to be a playoff team at the end of the season. I've already said that in the preview video. So to lose that heavily, and the way San Antonio just seemed to handle Orlando after the first time out of the game, where they just switched up their defense and put on a like almost like a full court pressure on the Magic. I was quite worried. And the first home, then therefore the home opener became more important. And the Magic got blown out really again by the New York Knicks. And again, that was 121 to 96. So these games weren't even close. The Magic were down over 30 points in the Amway to what was actually a very loud pro-New York crowd. We won't go too far into that. But it was very concerning. So for the Magic to bounce back, great. I just hope for a young team that's still trying to find its identity that we don't see a load of blowouts. It is worth saying that these are coming on the back of injuries to what's arguably 4/5 of the starting lineup. So the Magic are playing without Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Gary Harris, and you could say would Chuma Okeke come into that starting lineup as well. So they are big injuries for the Magic, and they are, I think, playing some role. So that was a worry. The blowouts. Another worry I had within that was in the first two games, especially against New York. I was worried about how the Knicks just kind of bullied the Magic in Orlando. I think there was more of a fight back last night, shall we say, and we need to see more of that. My concern has been where you get these like bulldozer players, such as a Julius Randle, who I think every fan would love to have as a member of their team. Players like Julius Randle, players like Montrezl Harrell, who just seemingly can do what they want at times in the paint versus when they play in the Magic. I remember last season where Montrezl Harrell just basically, I think he made like a huge dunk, and then he was just primarily screaming at players on the Magic, and there just seemed to be no real comeback from that, no reaction. And Randall seemed to be having his way when in Orlando, and I know it's no easy task to stop him, but I did have those questions. But I feel last night there was the bounce back, and the character and the resilience have allayed that. And I think one where I do want to talk about, there is positive and there's negative, was the expectation on Jalen Suggs. Suggs, I think when we start off, Jalen Suggs himself would tell you he didn't have the best debut against the San Antonio Spurs, and I think the first half against the New York Knicks in Orlando didn't go to plan. I do think, and I was wondering, was this from the third quarter in the Knicks game, Suggs looked better, looked more comfortable. Now, my initial view was that because the game was beyond Orlando at that point. However, taking into account last night's game, I think Suggs has relaxed a little bit, is a little bit more at ease. He didn't seem to be rushing things as much in Madison Square Garden. And I think when you look at what he's doing, it's not coming to him totally at the minute on the offensive end. I do think part of that is because Orlando does not have that nightly 20 points plus per game scorer. So Suggs sees a lot of, how can I put this, priority coverage, I feel, especially in the first two games. And he's not getting like that many great chances and looks. He's very much under a microscope that a rookie might not find themselves under on a better team, or a team with more offensively minded than the Magic. On top of that, I do think if you look at a positive from this is the defensive play of Suggs. Particularly when looking at the Knicks game in Madison Square Garden, the way Suggs guarded Evan Fournier, who was a good player at NBA level, the way Suggs limited Fournier down to, I think it was 8 points, and just frustrated him all night. And then in the other games, his defensive hustle, his placement, being a pest, willing to go in the paint, get up and challenge big guys for shots as well. There's a lot to like about Suggs, and I think with the shots, I think once they start falling consistently, the future is still bright for Jalen Suggs, and I'm still very much on board with that. So, Suggs is becoming, each game he plays, he will get better for me. But remember, he is a point guard, he is a rookie, and it's going to take time for the game to come to him, like a lot of young players do. I've also been really pretty happy with the overall play of Mo Bamba. I know I touched on it as Bamba being a player to watch, and I feel Bamba has, particularly in the first two games, which were losses, looked great, but he was again solid, I felt, and then in the game against the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, his motor does look a lot better, and there's been question marks about that. I feel it looks a lot better. He's playing with, I think, more desire. He's maybe got a point to prove, more relaxed a little bit as well, perhaps. So Mo Bamba has been a positive. And the last one at the start, I obviously shouted out Cole Anthony, and I also shouted out Terence Ross. I want to also shout out Franz Wagner. I am officially on I'm going to call it the Wagner Wagon, if you want the German pronunciation. I feel Franz has been brilliant this season. I know he did not have a great pre-season. I know there were some eyebrows raised by the pick itself. But I will say that I think the first 3 games, Wagner has been very encouraging. He's seen to be very much a bit of a do-it-all. I know you hear players like a Kevin Durant where you'll go, oh, they're a Rolls-Royce player. If we want to keep up with that, then Wagner very much so far has been a Volkswagen player. And by that I mean he's done everything well. He's done exactly what you would want, exactly what you would hope from a rookie who's starting at the 3 spot. I've been particularly impressed with his foot speed on the defensive end. I've been impressed with his passing. So he seems to be able to just make that pass, that basketball IQ pass, where he just knows where people are. And I think when you look at his footwork, it's impressive, but also his handwork is as well. And I think it's worth also looking at, with that coming at that point on IQ, how well he cuts. I know a couple of the other Orlando pods, I think it was possibly Jonathan Osborne on the Sixth Man show saying, was it too early to make the comparisons of him being a better cutter than Aaron Gordon? But again, he just seems to be able to do that at ease, at will. So Franz Wagner, I'm on the Wagner wagon. Great first 3 games from Franz, and yeah, keep it up. I'm really enjoying watching the development of Wagner. So again, all positives so far then, apart from obviously the 2 blowouts. Now, I just want to make a couple of other points really, and that would be about the general NBA. Before the Magic's game against the Knicks, managed to watch Brooklyn versus Charlotte. I do have a bit of a soft spot for the Hornets, given I've got family in Charlotte and I've visited a few times. Charlotte really handled Brooklyn 111-95, and a couple of things really that stood out to me in that game. First of all, just how good Kevin Durant is. You never get tired of watching Kevin Durant. It does feel a little bit like going back to watching Tracy McGrady, the way he moves on the court, glides, everything just seems effortless scoring. Secondly, is there a better player right now than Lamelo Ball to watch as a neutral? The only player really, I would say, start of this season, who I would say has an ease and a highlights package would be Ja Morant. Those 2 players this season just seem to have been picked up where they left off last season. If you haven't seen it, by the way, go and have a look at some of the highlights of Ja Morant so far this season, especially, I'm going to just call it that move. That move again, when the Grizzlies were playing the Clippers, the guy just seems to be a walking Top Shot moment. Absolutely fantastic to watch. But again, Lamelo Ball, just the way he passes the ball, everything just seems so effortless. It's a bit like when you're watching, if I look back to the 90s, watching Penny Hardaway, watching Jason Kidd, where just the ball all of a sudden is being just in a scoring position and the teammates don't have much work to do to put it in the basket. So a real joy. And what was really interesting, I know I've mentioned in the season preview about James Borrego being an underrated head coach, was as the game was winding down, Ish Smith, bench player, was left in at the expense of Lamelo Ball because of his form, how well he was playing in that game. And I thought that was a really big call from James Borrego, and a one that paid off. It could have backfired massively, but like when you talk about going with and giving people a chance, I thought that was great. Other things I've noticed to start the season, there was a few question marks heading into based on the preseason. Were the Chicago Bulls for real? Well, they've started 3-0. So it's a heck of a start. And again, you're looking there at what seems to be a very fun league pass team, which a neutral would probably enjoy watching. Looking at some of the players, Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, I think the addition of DeMar DeRozan just looks inspired, and the Bulls starting 3-0. And a final one, and I'm really, really happy about this, is the Washington Wizards. And in the season preview, I said I wasn't sure whether the Wizards would be able to bring all those parts together with a new coach so quickly. They've started 2-0, and in particular Spencer Dinwiddie. He's averaging about 24 a game. It seems to be, he's taking on a lot of the load there. And what makes me happiest there is that this is a guy coming back from ACL problems. So as a Magic fan, hoping for Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac to bounce back, seeing that from Spencer Dinwiddie, absolutely huge. So that's the key points I've got so far. Obviously, I don't watch every single NBA game, but I do watch the Magic games. I do watch highlights of other teams. But those little news bits on Charlotte, on Morant, on the Bulls, I just thought I would add those on as a nice little, and one, and then the positive news with Dinwiddie and the Wizards. One other thing, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Garant and the UK Magic guys for the shout out on the pod the other day. If you're watching me and you're not watching those guys, go and watch it. It's so slick, it's so well put together, and they get guests on from a Magic angle that are a dream. Absolutely brilliant. So please go and follow the Orlando Magic UK Penny for Your Thoughts group. Again, if you like this video, please press the like button. If you wish to subscribe, please do. Interact in the comments. Keep it respectful. I'll reply when I see it. And the Magic play tonight against the Miami Heat, so the schedule just gets harder, and it'll be interesting to see every Magic fan's favourite player, Kyle Lowry, back on the court and all against the Magic. I'm sure I will be saying nice things to my TV when Mr. Lowry is suited up. So have a great one.